Yeah. Honestly, for me in the beginning, getting to Paris, I think the biggest thing for me was just finding my way around Paris to begin with. Because I mean, it's a small place, but anywhere new is always going to be a challenge to navigate. And also subsequently with my internship, having to wake up, being an actual adult, it was like a huge blow. Like I'd have to wake up at a certain time, be at work by a certain time, report to supervisor at a certain time, and it was just like, wow, this happened really fast. But overall, it was a great experience. Like I keep saying that, but it truly was. And just being able to say I did that, I'm like, well, it just I could say I'm a different version of myself now because of everything I've been through over the course of this year. And then having to leave at the last minute due to COVID. I mean, Lizette and um, so Kelsey can attest to that. It was crazy having to get a plane ticket the next day, leave mid March, get to the airport, have someone pick you. But we figured out the logistics, and I think that's really helped me mature into someone who can actually take on challenging aspects of travel and just internationally, like adapt to situations. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's like the reverse of Quinn's situation. Instead of trying to get over there, you're just trying to get back home. But you're right. Like a lot of people are intimidated by travel in general, like an airport, all of that. And we get why, because it can be stressful. But once you do it, you're like, okay, I can do this now. Very good. And Lyric, what about you?
I'd say maybe one of my challenges was kind of just being a minority, like female. I feel like it's just already like the program that I was with, it was already only a few of us. Like, like it was only like three or four. Like I could count how many of us it was on our hands. So just trying to like find a balance of like finding kind of like my community while I'm not home, and like I think I did really well with that because like a lot of my friends and stuff, like they would go to like the bars or the pubs or whatever, but like that's not really my scene. That's not really how I am at home. So like I found like my own type of like events and things to go to that people that look like me and like similarities, and I found like a place where like I could feel, like more comfortable and like get to know a different type of, what I'm saying, like a different type of minority people, because like African Americans is different from like Black people, say in like England or London or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So like that was, I would say, probably an obstacle because at first you just like completely surrounded by people who don't really look like you. So there's already like a cultural kind of like barrier. So just finding like your niche, kind of.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. And also, like, good job for going out on your own and finding that space that felt more comfortable for you, because I'm sure that's not easy. Like you said, like if the majority of the group is going one way and you choose to go another to kind of like follow your own path, it can be hard. But like I'm glad that that worked out for you and that you were able to find that, while you were in London. So that's awesome. Um, the next question is, how do you feel that your identity affected your overseas experience, if it did at all? And identity can be so many different things. Um, so really just like what makes you who you are, and do you feel like what you bring to the table affected the experience you had, kind of like that story that Lyric just shared with us. Um, so let's see, we can start with Alaces.
Oh, well, my identity abroad was kind of interesting because I feel like there was a lot of different identities that I had that affected a lot of things. Like, I was the only Asian girl in my group, and a lot of the times whenever I did go out to the pubs with everybody, I was the only one who got ID'd a lot because I apparently inherently look a lot younger than all of my friends. I even got ID'd for an energy drink because apparently in London you have to be 16 to buy an energy drink, and they thought I was too young, and I was like, I'm 19. Like I was 19 then. So that was interesting. But there were other things like in the workplace, there was a weird like pressure because I didn't know what the workforce was like, but I guess with my own, like, I guess American work habits, there was always like the need, like, I need to do more, I need to do a lot. And they're always just kind of like, oh, wow. So they kept on giving me like harder tasks, which was okay in terms of like getting the experience. But I was like, this is a lot. And but I was capable of doing it, so I was fine with doing it. But a lot of the times it was weird, like just walking around being me, not in a place that already knew who I was.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. I haven't thought of that before. And I've done some of these panels with students before, and that's the first time I've heard about kind of bringing American work ethic to the table overseas and how sometimes it doesn't translate the same way. That's really interesting. Thank you. Let's see. How about Raphael?
Yeah, I'll just speak on what Alaces just said again. I think we had very similar experiences abroad. I'm sorry, am I saying your name right? I'm so sorry. Anyway, in terms of the internship, just seeing how work culture worked over there, as opposed to comparing that to the internship I had undertaken the year before, was just crazy because French people are so much more laid back. Um, I'd always be there like 8, 9 a.m. and they'd be like, no, I'd be there by 8 and they'd be like, we start at 9. So I'd always just be waiting at the door and, lunch would be an hour long and I'd go and come back in like 20 minutes and be like, why are you back so early? I was just leaving. It's just so lax. Just like Americans, you guys work so hard. You don't take time to enjoy life. And the cultural difference is just so remarkable. And honestly, it doesn't sound bad, like, thinking about working there. But yeah, there's that. And there's also, just going about your business regularly, let's say in Paris. And you might not really be able to understand this, but as an African or as a Black person in a predominantly white or European country, you're always, it's normal to feel a little out of place. But I've never let that stop me, because growing up, I've pretty much grown up in predominantly European and Western societies, and color, race, it's just it's a facade. It's like a boundary that people are so scared to touch on. But the moment you have like a physical encounter with someone, or you exchange words, and you hear what that person sounds like, that person's characteristics, you realize, oh, we're not that different. This person is a person just like me, experiences the world just like I do. He just looks different. So I think Study Abroad just kind of gave me that chance of exploring other people's perspectives, seeing how they think, and then making connections that way. Because in the workplace, you're not always going to be paired with your favorite person or someone who looks like you. So I think it's a really important experience to have. Thanks.
Yeah, that's awesome, Raphael. Thank you so much. All of you, but you have to watch Emily in Paris if you haven't yet, because
I just finished it.
Me too. If you've ever lived in France, traveled to France, like that show hits the nail on the head. And when Raphael said that he was showing up early and they showed up 2 hours later, like, why were you here? That's exactly. So anyway, good show talking about cultural differences in work and everything. But that was a really awesome and thoughtful answer. Thank you. And Quinn, right? Or am I at Lyric? Oh, yeah, maybe I'm at Lyric. I'm sorry, Lyric.
It's fine. Kind of just expanding on what Raphael said, like, definitely, like, first of all, when you go to a different country, automatically you're American. Like, kind of like your skin color and the way you look, like, that doesn't even matter. As soon as you open your mouth, you're American. So they're gonna just put all of the different type of American stereotypes on you, like, oh, like, we're loud talkers and stuff. Like, for example, when I used to take the tube all the time to like get to and from work, and like, people are a lot more quiet on the trains. Like, people don't really talk as much as like how it is in the city. Like, in the city, they're like dancing and like everyone's screaming across the like room, across the train to each other. But in London, it's like people are more like low key and quiet, and like you can tell the difference. Like when me and my friends got on the train and we're like talking, and then everyone else around the train is just silent. So like, there's a lot of different like differences in terms of that kind of stuff. But in terms of my identity, like I kind of like flourished out there. Like I'm like naturally just a very personable, like I'm very energetic. I'm a people person and I can get along with anyone from any different race, background, whatever. So like doing a study abroad experience, like you get, as Raphael said, you're introduced to a whole bunch of different people from different cultures and backgrounds, even within your program. Like I was doing classes with people who are like from Texas and, you know, different places from the world. So not only are you getting exposure to different cultures in London, you're also getting exposure to different cultures from like the United States or whatever, the people that are on your program with you.
That's awesome. That's so true. And yeah, what a time to be American. It's a, you know, especially like, you know, as of recent, like there's a lot that gets tied to that. And you may or may not identify with any of the things that those people overseas are going to kind of label you with, because there's been so much in the media and affecting world politics involving our country. I mean, always, but especially recently too. So I'm sure all of you have a version of that. But finally, Quinn, what about for you?
So first of all, I took German as a foreign language in middle and high school, which doesn't really help in France. So not being very well versed in the French language definitely impacted me. But fortunately, most of my friends in my group knew French, so they were able to help me out whenever necessary, like with ordering food or asking for directions or other things like that. And I also am not very good at directions and like, so I'm definitely directionally challenged, and Paris is a very confusing city in the way it's laid out. So I've had some trouble with navigation, but fortunately my group mates also were better at that and they helped me out with that too. And the laid back mentality too. Even though I was only there for a week, I still noticed that it's much more like laid back, not in a rush. Like people will sit down and eat for a while. Like I think at least 2 hours, like the general amount of time that people would be in a cafe or something, or just doing work while they're having coffee. And I feel like it's much different than the American way of eating, where you're kind of like in and out quickly. But other than that, I didn't really run into a lot of problems regarding my identity. But
Good. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so